How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Garage Built Baits. I'm your host, Wyatt Byer of Byer Lure Co. on YouTube, so go check that out as well. As long as I'm shamelessly plugging myself, you can go visit the links down below. There's a Buy Me Coffee. All the support from anything like that goes right back into the channel and making these podcasts, things like that. Super cool guest. We have Kyle from the Gracely Baits, and I was so excited to have Kyle on. He's such a cool dude. Little fun fact about him: he was on The Voice. We don't get into that, but you can watch his episode on Cast and Crank podcast where he talks about being on The Voice and that process. But Kyle makes these really cool swim baits, and it was just a delight to have him on. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and we'll just get right into it.
I am the owner of the Gracely Baits. I have honestly been best known for the small finesse size swim baits. Some people absolutely love them. Some people completely disagree with them. But that's kind of been my niche, and that's where I've come from. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. And I got a couple Gracely baits right here in front of me.
Right on.
Pretty stoked about these baits. Like, I would say when people start out like swim baiting, people tend to like gravitate towards like an S waver or something like that. Dude, I would gravitate towards your stuff just because it's small enough. You really wouldn't need a dedicated swim bait rod for it, and
Right.
you could start into throwing a garage built bait, when you're not into it for too much. You can find your baits on like underground for really good prices, and you do
Right.
frequent drops.
For sure. Yeah, I try and do weekly drops. It gets difficult, but yeah, I try and do weekly stuff. So that
Mm-hmm.
way everybody can get them.
Yeah. So how did this start out for you? How did bait making start out?
It actually started out. So I've got a local pond to me where, I mean, so I started originally with like a couple bull shads, a couple mat lures, and those were my beginning baits. Those are the ones that I really started out with. But the problem is that their baits. I love fishing a big bait, and I would catch fish. But dude, in these park ponds that we've got, like the bluegill are no more than 3 or 4 inches, and you get a couple bigger ones than that. But otherwise, I mean, that's the size of the bait that they were eating. So my thought was, okay, I'm gonna make something that's a bluegill profile because they're eating bluegill pretty much year round here in California because our cold days are in the 50s still. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of it's one of those things. They're always eating bluegill, so I made a small bluegill profile and ran with it. It was originally a swimmer, and then made a glide bait out of it, and it started producing fish for me. And I had a couple buddies of mine fishing them, and then their friends wanted one, and all of a sudden, I started selling them. I think I started selling them at like $40 kind of thing before I
Mm-hmm.
knew what I was doing and realized how much money I was losing selling them for that. And all of a sudden it just turned into one of those things that I started making a bunch of them because there really wasn't anything on the market that was tiny like that. That was garage built. There were, and there's your ABS options. There's the plastic options, like things like the baby. I think it was the baby G-Ron was a good one. But it just didn't swim the way that I wanted it to, and that's really where the bluegill kind of came into play. So.
Mm-hmm. And so when you first made the finesse gill, what like how did the carving look like for that? Did you have just scrap pieces of wood laying around, or did you go seek out like something?
Yeah, so it was actually kind of a mess. I don't recommend doing it this way, but I made the original. So the original was the three-piece swimmer that I
Mm-hmm.
was saying, and it was a lot thicker, uh, and it worked. But I wanted a glide bait, and so what I did was I had one solid block mold that had the head, the midsection, and the tail, and I decided to cut all of the silicone away so I could just have one like solid piece kind of thing. It was super ugly, and then and like yeah, dude, I ended up shaving it all down and trying to reshape it, and that's how I ended up getting the glide bait out of the three piece and trying to keep it similar, but. And even that one, dude, it was ugly, but it worked, bro. It worked really good, and so And then obviously, now I'm using Row, and they helped clean everything up. And
Mm-hmm.
I love Jake and his team over there. They've become like family now, so it's fun.
Yeah, I could just imagine you just having this big old silicone brick, and then
Dude,
you're
that's what it was.
demolding. There's just flashing everywhere.
It's pretty nasty, but again, they work, bro. That was my whole thing. Was I didn't necessarily care how it looked, but then when the opportunity was presented to me of like what Row was a bit cleaning it up, I was like, all right, cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's a lot of people. I just kind of want to put it out there. There's a lot of people who think that if you use Row Innovations, the bait's just going to swim for you out of the mold, and that's absolutely not the case. You still have to know what you're doing. You still have to know how to tune a bait, and especially with the little stuff. I mean, you know, any bait maker will tell you the little stuff is a lot harder to do than the big stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
it was not easy figuring everything out, but it's all part of the fun process. So
Yeah. Well, especially I think with like something that's a gill profile. Well, first you have something that's like a little taller, but
yeah,
like pretty thin.
yeah,
So having that not roll over and
yeah.
swim straight.
Man, that's one of the older bluegills.
Dude, I don't know. This color is kind of different.
Yeah, no, that was one of the crappie that I painted. That's cool. I
Yeah, I
haven't
got
seen
this
that
off.
one in a while.
Yeah, I got this off of Underground. I might have a um, Colorado Customs like do a bluegill paint just
Sick.
because. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've thrown this quite a bit. Yeah, this is a first gen, so your tail's different now on the
It
finesse
is.
scale.
Yeah, I made a little fix. So there was and it wasn't a problem for all of them, but it was way too many of them for my comfort, where the tails would crack. I'm somebody who likes fishing very close to docks and
Mm-hmm.
rocks and everything as close as possible as I can get to it. And so, I even found myself breaking tails more often than I would like to admit, and so it needed to be fixed. I mean, now that it's fixed, I'm not having really any problems structurally. I mean,
Yeah.
they work great. So
So did you just like make the tail section a little thicker, or what'd you do?
I just filled in the tail slot essentially, so it
Mm-hmm.
matches up with like. So I've got some of the commodes sitting here. So like, that essentially it's just a shallower tail slot.
Oh, I
Um,
got you.
so I mean that's it.
Yeah, cause like on like the finesse Shat, the tail slot's a lot more shallow than on
Correct.
the gill.
Right. So essentially it matches the Shat
Okay,
if you
so
get got one there.
yeah, so like now your tails are just interchangeable. That's awesome.
Correct.
All right,
Yeah.
sweet. And so kind of the progression. So you started out with the finesse skill, and I don't know,
Yeah.
you've had a lot of new stuff come up here recently. But like, what's
Yeah.
been your progression of baits starting from the finesse
So
skill?
yeah, so it started with the finesse gill. Then I made a full size gill, which I have stopped making for the time being. It is coming back in 2025. I know I get a lot of questions asking about when that's coming back. So 2025, the full size gill is making it come back. Um, After the full size gill, I had a small run. I did like 53-piece bluegills. They were fun, but they were a headache.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't make any more of those either. But and then after that was the idea behind, okay, how do I get a shad profile that kind of looks like a trout?
Mm-hmm.
And and so that's what I did. I started carving, and I had for, I think it took 2 or 3 years. I don't remember exactly. It took a few years to kind of find something that worked, that could mimic both a shad and a trout and swim properly,
Mm-hmm.
because that it was a problem. So once I finally got it dialed in, that's where the Shat came from. And the Shat, a lot of people, obviously I've ran with the names, and that's been kind
Yeah.
of a it's been a funny thing. But realistically, it wasn't supposed to be funny at first. I was really just writing names down, and I wrote things down like trout and trad, and just I was just trying to mix the two names together, and I wrote Shat down. And my buddy and we started dying laughing. I mean, that was like, it stuck. It was kind of like it was somebody wrote online actually, and it cracked me up. He wrote something along the lines of like, this is like two college dudes that got way too drunk in a dorm and ran with their idea, kind of thing. And that's kind of what it ended up like turning into. So it was but yeah, that's where the Shat came from. The finesse, and then the full size. And now we've got a floater, which is the crank down, the one with the bill. Um, and then the 3-piece, the new one, the commode, which has been, that bait has been hard for me to put down, which is fun. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. That's everything that I've got. So
Yeah, I like how.
and then there's a lot more coming.
Yeah, I like how you really leaned into the poop jokes, if you will, and like the
Dude,
Shat, the your rods, the plunger,
right.
just works.
It works. I figured it was something funny that's not a name that everybody else calls their stuff. And so, yeah, it's no, people like it. People seem to crack up at it, so I decided just to run with it.
So I'm not super familiar with the
Okay.
plunger. Like, what are
Okay.
the specs on that rod?
Yeah, that thing. So that rod is a lot of fun to fish with. So like a lot of people, when I first kind of released it, they kept asking me. They were comparing it to similar rods. Like I think like Leviathan's Omega Finesse. I know F5 has one. Um, oh, I forget the name of it, dude. But they have one. It's a very soft rod. I mean, it's a lot more lightweight than even those rods. It really is made for the finesse stuff, and uh, it's it took me forever to find a blank that I liked a lot. I think it's rated like 3/4 ounce to 1 3/4. Um, I fish. People call me crazy, but I fish 12-pound fluoro on everything, so that's really like the sweet spot for the rod. Um, but yeah, I mean that rod I fall in love with it. I mean, I kept 3 of them for a reason, and I'm getting more made, so it's kind of yeah. And then I've also got another one that's again part of the 2025 stuff that's going to be for the 7-inch and another feature bait. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. No. Okay, so you're running 12-pound fluoro. That's what I'm running.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, for the finesse gill and the Shat. But dude, I'm throwing your baits on a medium bait caster.
There you go. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
th-
Right.
and they chuck them well at like so that rod that I built, so it's medium action and it's like moderate fast,
Right.
so like loads up really good, and it chucks your baits really good.
For
Like,
sure. That's the thing. Like, there's a lot of guys who I know are even throwing my stuff on crankbait rods. The biggest thing and for anybody, especially like how you were saying, there's a lot of new guys that are just kind of getting into swim baits that are finding my product. There's a lot of guys like you don't need a dedicated swim bait setup. If you have a crankbait rod, like a heavy crankbait rod, that's like gonna be your best bet. Um, some guys are using jig sticks, which are okay, but they're too stiff for a treble hook bait.
mm-hmm.
So you'll pull some hooks. But yeah, dude, no, I mean, especially like a medium action rod, like you were saying, I mean, it probably loads up well on that thing.
Yeah. They just lob cast it out. Whoa, just
Sorry.
lob cast it out, and so it's like my jerk bait, like crankbait rod, but it
Yeah.
just lob casts them out and freaking works the bait really well. It's like your baits are a little bit overpowered for like what the rod is rated for,
Right. Right.
but I mean, dude, if you've been fishing for a while and you kind of know what you're doing, like Marshall fishes freaking 12-pound and 10-pound for
Yeah.
crazy baits as well.
Yeah. 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 See, right. Exactly. So if I'm fishing ultra clear water, I'm going down to 10 pound. If I'm fishing absolutely murky water, it's usually between 14 and 16. Um, it just kind of depends where I'm fishing. Most of the stuff out here is fairly clear though, so that's why kind of 12 pounds my nice in between.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like I'm here in South Dakota, so like Mount Rushmore area. A lot
Okay.
of our lakes are very clear, have trout.
Yeah.
My only worry would be like a pike. So,
Ah. Yeah.
dude, so yeah, I got a finesse Shat here, and
Cool.
yeah, so I painted this, but
Nice.
so I don't remember who it was, but some painter, he was like, you always gotta paint like an anus on it.
You got to.
Yeah, so
Here's the thing, dude. A lot of those fish are feeding up. And so it makes sense that if they're looking at the underside, I mean, that's kind of, especially with that bait, bro, being the
yeah,
name of it, I mean, you got
yeah, you gotta put a butthole on it, dude.
to. Right.
Dude, so dude, yeah, cause I've had a 30-inch pike like really like it torpedoed up and then
Yeah.
just stopped and was looking at it. And
Right.
it was just like right here, and I was the pucker factor was there. I'm like, is it gonna take this bait? Am I gonna lose this bait?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's so
dude,
funny.
dude, that was that fishery though. It's like kind of it's super pressured and super tough. But dude,
Okay.
I've even had like I for sure will catch a rainbow trout on this because I've had some
Yeah.
big rainbows really like just right on it, just
Oh
following
yeah.
it.
Yeah, no, I've caught them. I mean, I chase rainbows and brown trout and stuff with it too. I just don't really ever post about it because it seems like most of the fishing world doesn't necessarily love trout fishing with some baits. But it's it works good. The thing is like one of the things that I don't remember exactly who said it, but these fish don't have mirrors. They're not sitting there looking at
Mm-hmm.
themselves like, huh, can I eat that kind of thing? It's more of a if it's attracted them and they want to chase it, they're going to chase it. It's like a cat with a laser.
Mm-hmm.
If it's attracted by it, it's going to chase it. So that's I think you totally could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cause I've caught trout on my depths 115. I've had
Okay.
trout follow this, and who's the guy? I think it's Derelict Fishing on Instagram. He's
Okay.
like over in Wyoming, and he catches
Yeah.
trout all the time on swim baits.
Yep.
It's
Yeah,
freaking
he does.
crazy.
Yeah, no, he's a good fisherman. I wish it was a little bit more popular, but unfortunately, people don't really care. So.
Oh,
You know,
dude.
another fish that trips me out is that people don't love more is striper, like striped bass.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know why people don't like. I mean, like I love chasing those things. We have a bunch of them in our lakes out here, and like, they're fun, bro. And they pull hard, pound for pound. They pull very, very hard compared to other species, bro. So, but
Well,
anyway,
that's like here in the Midwest, pike can get like a bad rap, and it's like, yeah, do I always want to catch pike? No, but if I'm catching a massive one, like hell yeah, if I'm catching something over like 20,
right,
24 inches, like I'm pretty stoked about it.
right.
As long as it doesn't, break me off.
For sure. See, I think that's why I can see why they get a bad rap for that purpose exactly, but otherwise, nah. I mean, I would think that they're probably pretty fun to fish. I don't get the opportunity to chase them ever, so.
Mm-hmm. And kind of leaning back into the baits, so the commode, that's kind
Yeah,
of a different kind of swimmer, is what you've been saying, like on your Instagram and stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah. Dude, I had like 6 different variations of this bait, and to be fair, I had one that swam. I don't want to say better, but it looked slightly more natural underwater to me than the one that I decided to stick with. But there is a but there. The bait specifically, there's something that I did with the back joint here that makes it so extremely loud. This one, and it swims great. I mean, it still looks extremely natural, but the back joint on the bait here is so loud underwater. I am not exaggerating. Maybe you've seen the video, or maybe whoever's watching has seen the video, but I should post it again just so people can see it. The thing legitimately sounds like a rattle can underwater. I mean, it's very, very, very loud compared to all the other ones. So that's the reason I ran with it. And like, even for the commode release, when I went out and I got to film with my buddy Cade, those fish were coming up 20, 30 feet off the bottom to come and chase it. And I got to believe that the reason is because of how noisy the bait was. I'd sit there and throw the 5-inch Shat. They wouldn't move, kind of thing. I'd throw the 3-piece over the top of them, and they came right up from the bottom to come and look at it. So
Mm-hmm.
it has the draw power, and not necessarily, and it moves a lot of water too for the size. But the noise is a huge thing that helps. I mean, it's got to help trigger the bites because they're coming recently, and it's been great for me. So it's been hard to fish anything else.
So when you're out fishing, are you exclusively fishing your baits, or do you have like a lineup you like to run with?
So I'll say this. Like a year ago, I absolutely despise the people who only fish their bait because I'm like, come on, like your baits aren't the only thing that work. But now I am that guy because part of the reason is not because I don't like fishing other people's stuff because other stuff works, but when I go fish, it's for the sole purpose to catch stuff on my baits and help prove to the community that my stuff works and that like I'm not just a builder, I'm also a fisherman at the end of the day who's going out and using my stuff and catching it. And I've got a growing family, bro. So like I
Mm-hmm.
don't get to fish that often. So when I do, it's like I just bring my stuff. I don't even bring anything, dude. I grab one of my bait wraps and I throw a couple baits in it and I go, and that's like my day. I don't really get to fish for that long. I'm usually going for maybe 3 or 4 hours kind of thing, and I'm just trying to catch something. So it's unfortunately, the bait based on the size is small enough that I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Am I chasing the biggest bite in the lake? No, not necessarily. I'm chasing bites in a general sense, but the opportunity is there to catch a giant. You know, um, anytime you use something slightly bigger than a 2-inch Kytex, so it's it, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I do really only fish my stuff anymore. I could pick up a drop shot and go catch fish. That's not even like really. It's just no fun for me anymore, dude. There's something different about building something, going out and sticking a fish on it. It's exciting, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, exactly. And when, like, I'm kind of in a similar boat. Like, I work a lot, so I don't always have time to fish or whatever. So when I go out,
yeah,
I don't know. Dude, I so like the Midwest is like finesse fishing and Ned rig
yeah,
and drop shot or whatever. It's like, dude, I hate that. That's not what I want to do.
right,
But I also want to catch fish, so I'm usually bringing like swim bait stuff, and then it's like I'll bring my conventional stuff.
yeah,
And I've had times where, hey, swim baits aren't working. These bass that are following my spinner bait, that's not working. I gotta slow it down. But
yeah,
then I'm throwing like a jig or
for
something
sure.
like that.
Yeah, oh yeah. No, that's a really good. So that's a good point. That's kind of the one of the things that's been super helpful with the commode is if I have a fish that's sitting there following the glide bait, like my glide, like the 5-inch Shat, the glide bait. There's a reason, we've done like 2,000 of them kind of thing. A lot of people have them and they work great, but sometimes those fish just want to sit there and just follow it. Like they're sitting there tracking right behind the bait, but they won't commit, dude. So I'll sit there, I'll put that rod down, grab a commode and fire it out there. And it's just a slow wind with a couple of twitches in the rod, and it makes that bait like that's when I mentioned the rattle can noise. It does
Mm-hmm.
a simple clack, but then when you rip it, it goes krah, krah, and those fish, something happens where they just like can't help themselves. If they followed the Shat right before that, they're gonna eat the commode. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
a 1-2 punch for me, which has been very very. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's pretty unbelievable. Um, the other one that the floater even is like not too many people are talking about it, but
Mm-hmm.
that's another one. Like if you, for example, like a lot of the fish here, they still have the shad kind of pushed up. They're still feeding up on the shad. And like a crankbait bite, like a shallow to medium running crankbait bite has been the ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And so even I'll sit there against any rock walls or whatever it happens to be. If there's like a long flat or any kind of situation where you might throw a crankbait, I'm picking up a floater. And one of the things that I do that I don't think I've actually come out and publicly said is I load up the bait with lead, and I'll put lead like right all around that front hook hanger, and I'll get that bait to sink out so that it's more of like a countdown, and I can fish the floater in like 30 foot of water
Mm-hmm.
and like a crankbait, and it's essentially like I'll use the example like Matt Allen talks about speed cranking kind of thing for tactical bassing. That's how I'm fishing it, and dude, even that's producing a lot of bites. Like it's feel free to modify stuff. Like if I can give anybody like a little pro tip, modify, dude. Change
Mm-hmm.
change hooks, add weight.
Mm-hmm.
Do things to change it. Because I do make everything as slow sink as possible. Um, so that you can mess with it.
Yeah, well, that's what I did with the finesse Shat that I have here, because our water's like
Yeah.
clear and deeper in
Yeah.
some lakes. So I was like, well, I wanted to sink like slightly faster,
Yeah.
so I can get down a little bit more, fish it a little bit deeper. Um,
Right.
with the floater, so since you have the bill on that, does that deflect cover pretty well then?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, super good. So that's why I painted. I don't know if you saw the run of the craw
Mm-hmm.
color that I did, dude. That color was yeah, absolutely insane. Like that floater, it realistically it looks like if you're fishing in shallow water, or if you add weight to it and you're fishing in deeper water, even if you have clear water, you can see. I mean, it looks like those craws when they're scurrying along the bottom. It looks just like it. Like it made sense that I did the craw pattern. That's kind of why I painted it in the first place, was because I was fishing a blank at one of my local parks and was like, dude, this thing looks just like a craw trying to get away as it was deflecting off of stuff. So
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did see the run of the craw colors, and that's what I was gonna go like into next, is because like with the Shat, um, it looks good in a lot of different colors, and then doing the craw colors on the floater, that's freaking sweet, dude.
it was fun. That was a popular color. I need to bring that one back because that's one that people talk about a lot.
Yeah, um, I don't remember. Did you do any like blue craws with that run, or is it
I
all like
haven't.
red?
It was just a bright cherry red because that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what I was seeing at the park. So like early fall time when I had originally painted them, early fall time, a lot of people don't know those craws like spawn early in the fall and then they hibernate so that the eggs will hatch by the spring kind of thing. And so those craws, they're up on the banks, like they're up shallow, in the early fall time, and those bass are feeding on them up shallow. It's a I think a craw gets overlooked in the early fall time, and maybe it doesn't by most people, but I feel like a lot of people don't throw a craw imitator that early into the fall, and that seems to be when it's working the best. I had it was a month ago. I had a day where they wouldn't touch anything. I mean, I threw everything I had at them. The last bait in my bait wrap was the craw pattern, and I saw a pair of pinchers, and so it was kind of an indicator. Okay, if there's just pinchers there, a bass probably got them. I threw that thing in even at our local pond. That like you're lucky if you even get a bite. Forget catching something, dude. Like you're not gonna catch, right? If you get a bite, you're excited. I went out there and caught 4 fish that day on that craw pattern. Like, and they were tearing it up. Like that's just what they wanted. So I should do some kind of blue craw. I do have a black and blue floater. Um, I have a few of them. I'll probably drop some more of them pretty soon. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, no. But that was essentially to answer your question. Yeah, it deflects off of things very well. So
Yeah. Well, and then at like one of my local ponds, was super pressured. A lot of people fish there. Um, that's what you'll see on the bank, is you'll see pinchers and like other different craw pieces, and a lot of times you're gonna see with different blue colorations, like darker blues and light blues. So like I've
that's
painted a
cool.
couple crankbaits like that, and they're pretty
Yeah,
sweet.
and it works well.
I don't know. I don't fish enough to where I can find out. Sucks, dude.
I get it. That's funny.
Yeah, but um, going into what you got coming up. So I know 2025. You're saying you bring back the full size gill. Like any
Yeah.
sneak peek or little crumbs that we could get of what else is coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, the one bait that people have asked for, probably besides the full size gill making a comeback, is a bigger shat,
Mm-hmm.
bigger than the 7 inch, and so that's finally coming. I've got a 9 inch that's on the way. Um, I'm bringing the 9 inch out. It will have swiveling hook hangers. Um, it's that bait's going to be a lot of fun. I have a feeling that's going to be a popular one. And then other SKUs that are kind of similar to what I have now, just different variations, right? So like I've got the 7 inch, which is only just a glide bait right now, so it'll be, bringing out a floater of that one, bringing out the 3 piece in that one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I said, bringing the big bluegill back. You know what I mean? Like just putting a lip, making a 3 piece floater kind of thing. Um, so I mean, yeah, just a lot of fun tinkering recently, which has
Mm-hmm.
been a little crazy, but it has been fun. So
Yeah, dude, I definitely want to get my hands on a commode. Um, I got this Airbnb trip where I take people fishing, and this one guy and I, we were in my kayak, have a 2-seater, and we were just tearing it up on a spinner bait, and he was like, "Well, this is working. Like, let's just keep throwing this." And in the back of my mind, I was like, if they're eating a spinner bait, they're gonna eat a swim bait.
Yeah,
Like I wish we would have, had, the finesse gill or something or another to throw at them. But I think that
right,
commode would have, like, definitely fired them up. Cause dude,
for
we were
sure.
catching friggin' rock bass on that
Yeah,
spinner bait too.
I, yeah, I bet, dude. Yeah, I think especially with the spinner bait, if it's got a lot, those spinner baits have a lot of thump on them most times. I mean, they've got the big blade. I mean, it depends on the blade actually, but if it's got a bunch of thump, I mean, even something like in that situation, I would actually probably even pick up either the floater or the commode. I mean, they both move a bunch of water, but the floater has the lip on it. I think the lip helps a ton with getting bites too because of how much water it's pushing away from the bait. So.
Mm-hmm.
Um, same kind of thing with the spinner bait. It's creating that thump in the water. So but yeah, no. I mean, there's certain times, and some guys call my stuff conventional gear, and some guys consider them a swim bait. I mean, I guess it's a question of what do you consider a swim bait.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, growing up, my pops always considered a swim bait a soft plastic bait, and a hard bait was a plug. A glide bait. Those are considered plugs. So if we want to go back to old school, that's kind of what I remember. But
Mm-hmm.
I was only a kid then, so it's hard for me to tell. But yeah, no, it's fun. It's nice having a different size variation. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, like you, my uncle, he's like, "Oh, we're going walleye fishing." I'm like, "All right, that's cool. Like, what are we doing?" He's like, "We're pulling plugs," and I'm like, "That sounds boring. That's
yeah,
not what I don't want. I don't want to go if we're just gonna
right.
be doing that."
Yeah. Well, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah. So um, with your lineup of baits, I know at one point you were like 10 pounders caught. You'll do a replica of that. That
Yep.
still stand. That's still
Still
out
a
there.
thing.
Yeah.
Still a thing.
So how did that
Yep.
come about? How did you start doing some replicas and taxidermy like that?
I My first one was because my thought was when I was first making these baits, like before Roe ever touched anything, I was fishing them as hard as I could to try and catch something over 5 pounds on a little bait because I had somebody very well known in the fishing community tell me you're not going to catch something over 5 pounds on that bait, and it was kind of one of those things. It was a challenge for me, and it was the challenge accepted, and so I ended up sticking one that was 7.5 pounds, and I was like, you know what? Just because I did it, like it felt like an accomplishment. I had a little bit of extra bonus money, and I was like, all right, cool, because this is when I was working at a car dealership still, and so I bought a replica mount and was like, I think I could paint this thing. And the first one was okay. A lot of people liked it. I mean, a lot of people thought it was great still, but I wasn't super pleased with it, And then I caught my fish that was almost 9 pounds in Texas, and I figured, okay, I'm gonna redo this thing. And when I redid it looked very professional. I was extremely happy with it. I mean, it took me like 26 hours or something stupid, but
Mm-hmm.
it was you know going through and literally doing every single scale with. I mean, it was a long process, but it looked great, and it was something that I was extremely proud of, and it was something that I felt like I should be sharing with the people who are supporting me, and if they're supporting me enough to go out and fish it, and then they end up actually catching a double digit with it, why not allow them to be proud the same way that I am?
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's still one of those things. If they catch a double digit, they get one of every bait that I make at the time of the double digit being caught, and they get a replica amount of their fish. So, obviously, pictures and videos are amazing. They help. As many of them as possible is great. That way, I can do my best to replicate what's actually on the fish. But yeah, so that's kind of That's kind of where it got me, was the proud feeling of like, dude, I caught this. Like, and then it was on one of my baits too. So like, I went and hung that thing I hung the original bait in the fish's mouth, and that bait got retired. And it's exciting. So it's more of just wanting to share that with other people. So
Mm-hmm. So what's the biggest bass? We'll go with bass first. What's the biggest
yeah,
bass on your baits?
just under 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Just barely missed it. I almost wanted to give it to the guy too, because he's become like a friend now. But I, dude, he called me, he FaceTimed me. He's like, "I'm shaking. You're not gonna believe it. I think I finally did it." And it was under 10. I'm like, no, bro.
Oh
It was
man.
but no, that yeah. So we're getting close. The thing is it seems like the fish that people are catching on my baits generally tend to be between 3 and 7 pounds. Like that seems to be the range that people are catching pretty consistently. I mean, I'm getting, and like I think it was like a week or two ago, somebody caught one that was almost 9 the other day again. Like, those bigger fish do get caught. It's just kind of a matter of, what are those fish keyed in on? You know,
Mhm.
what are those fish keyed in on? What's the time of year? I mean, the type of, what breed of the fish are they? Are they Florida strain, northern strain? Are they hybrids? I mean, there's a lot that kind of goes into it, but that 3 to 7 pound range does kind of seem to be the sweet spot for my baits. So
Mhm. Yeah, and then I feel like I've seen like other species. I mean, like obviously catching smallies on your baits, but
oh yeah,
God, I feel like I've seen some like a lake trout or something
oh yeah,
on
yep,
your bait.
yeah. My buddy Matt caught, I think it was 25 pounds on the finesse Shat. It was a
Oh,
5 inch one.
yeah,
So
dude.
yeah, that was funny too because he caught it on a color that was totally a gag color, but he went out and did it. Dude, it was really really cool. I
Yeah.
think that I think that's the biggest fish on one of my baits to date. Um, but yeah, that thing was really cool. So,
Mhm.
and there's been a lot of like like hybrid white bass kind of thing that have been caught. 10, 12 pounds. Those are cool. But yeah, it's I'm waiting. Somebody's gonna crack double digit. I think especially when the 9 inch comes out, it's kind of inevitable. I mean, I think the bigger baits obviously do catch bigger fish. In certain scenarios, I think it's all a tool at the end of the day. But generally speaking, those bigger fish they don't eat as many meals. They're only eating one bigger meal, and then they're hunkering back down when just sitting there. It seems like they're pretty lazy. Um, and I think the 9 inch will potentially help catch that double digit. I think it's going to happen. Um, whether or not it comes on the 9 inch, I have no idea. But for some reason, I just have this thought that when it comes out, somebody's going to end up sticking the double digits. So
Yeah.
I just don't have time to put in on lakes to figure out where those fish are at and exactly what they're doing. Those big, big, big fish. I'd rather go out and have a day if I'm going to go out and spend 4 hours just catching a couple and getting out of there. So
Mhm. Yeah. So like around me, we have like two reservoirs that have like massive trout, but also big pike, big
mhm.
bass, and lake trout. So that's the goal is to uh, catch a lake trout on like the finesse shad, or
Oh yeah.
a swim bait along those lines. And catch big trout like lake trout on it. But I'm always like, oh, can't do it this week. I got stuff going on. I'll go next week,
Yeah.
and hopefully the weather holds out. We don't get ice. And
They should be pushing up shallow now, right? If
dude,
I know correctly.
I mean, like, yeah, it would have been like really great, uh, kind of beginning of November to
Ah,
mid-November, but now
got it.
people are ice fishing right now, so
Yeah, that makes sense.
dude,
Got it.
I'm kind of shit out of luck with. I gotta always have to wait till ice out.
Yeah. Well, you can catch them. Like I've got a guy, another guy that I talk to all the time. His name's Dustin. And he trolls for lake trout and big cutthroats and stuff with them. And he's doing great. I mean, he's catching tons of fish like every time he goes out. It's actually really cool to see these huge trout getting caught. I mean, 25 pounders kind of thing, like just big, like big, big, big fish. So, I love it, man. It's exciting. I'm grateful. I give all glory to God at the end of the day for being able to give me the opportunity to make these things and get to share like the fishing passion with you know with with fellow swimbait fishermen. I mean, it's exciting. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And so a couple months ago, when my buddy came out, we were out trout fishing. He was fly fishing. He brought his 5-year old with him.
Uh-huh.
5 year old's a freaking hammer, dude.
That's awesome.
Like first 10 minutes, he caught a 21-inch cut bow on a 3-inch paddle tail, and freaking kid's a hammer. And I had my depths 115, and I was letting him throw that around, and he got the bait casting figured out pretty quick, and I was like, he when they came over and I was showing them different swim baits and stuff, they're like, they were looking at some of your baits and they're like, oh, dude, that finesse gill for smallmouth in the springtime is gonna kill. So I think I got them kind of
Nice.
headed in that direction for
Yeah. Yep.
throwing some swim baits at some smallies.
For sure. Oh yeah, and I loved it. So like my dad lives out in Arizona, and he's got it's a great smallmouth fishery out there, and so every time we go out there, I have so much fun sitting there throwing these things because they catch them really good out there. I mean, it's fun. I have a lot of fun throwing stuff at smallmouth. So
Mm-hmm. Um, with with your baits and everything, um, what's the painting like for you? Are you doing a lot of it yourself? I know you outsource some of it as well to different
yeah. So
painters.
recently, just to try just to get production up, I'm outsourcing a lot of my paint. I do still paint every once in a while, but keeping up with like simply just social media and the business side of things is a lot of work. If I just ignored everybody's messages all day, I probably could paint more often, but I just would rather not. I'd rather engage with everybody who's supporting me. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, I do paint sometimes still, but not as often as I was.
Yeah, cause who did the axolotl paint? Because that's kind of
Oh,
fun.
yeah, that was Nathan Pierce.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that dude. When he was like, "Hey, check this out," I'm like, "Oh, run with it, dude. That's great. Like, I love it." Yeah, and when we did the finesse chat in that color, and then it was a hit. I mean, people loved it, so I was like, "Okay, we have to do the 7 inch," and then we did those. So yeah, that was a fun color. Well, I'll probably have to do more of them because that's a color that people like. So
Dude, well, like I said before, dude, that finesse shot just works so well with so many different paint jobs. Baby
right,
bass, perch, freaking shad colors, trout colors,
right,
axolotls.
for sure. One of the things that I actually did by accident, I didn't realize how well it matched like a herring. I mean, we don't have herring around here, but like there's a guy who fishes my stuff a lot. He's got blueback herring in his lake, and he's like, dude, these things are like a literal exact match. And he sent me a picture of one, and he's not kidding. I mean, literally, it looks just like the bait. So
Mm-hmm.
even for people who have herring in their lake, I mean, the Shat specifically is a great representation. So
Yeah, it's just a good profile for a ton of different things too. Cause my buddy, they live on um the river, so like in South Dakota, it's Lake Oahe.
okay,
Sometimes the Elite Series comes through, and it's good smallmouth fishery for them.
cool,
But a lot of smelt in there,
yeah,
and so that would
yeah,
also work
right,
for
same
something
kind of
like
thing.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep, yeah, absolutely.
like yeah, dude. Um, so oh shoot. Um, with fuck, forgot my questions here. Dude, it's just been like I've
You're
been
good.
looking forward to talking to you for like a while now, just because you're like the OG of kind of bringing in finesse swim baits and
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. Because you kind of, when the finesse skill came around, you kind of see more people doing stuff
for
like that
sure.
and
So
downsizing their baits.
that's one of those things I've actually got a lot of hate from people for some reason. Um, there were smaller baits, garage built baits before me, but nobody ever pushed them because of how much flack they would get from people. People would sit there and tell them like, "Dude, nobody's gonna buy that thing. Like, it's too small. Like, the swim bait is a big bait." And I get it. That's what it has always been. So for all the OG guys who have been around for a long time, like they know a swim bait is just a big bait. Like that's what they consider it, kind of thing. And even when I first started, dude, you wouldn't believe it. I was getting 2 to 3 messages daily from random people who wouldn't even follow me, telling me you don't even make real swim baits. And it was fine, My whole thing was I just kept grinding, dude. It's like I'm not gonna sit there and beg somebody to buy a bait from me. They don't have to buy a bait. I'm not gonna beg them for it. But all of a sudden, when I started selling more of them and more of them and more of them, and I don't have any social media influencers posting my stuff. Like it was all just based on strictly catches and what other people were saying about them. And they were catching fish. And people started catching more fish and people started catching on and buying more of them. And all of a sudden, I had to ramp up numbers to kind of keep up with demand. And now all of a sudden there's a huge shift for small baits. Whether it was because of me or not, I don't know. And I humble myself as much as possible to say that probably wasn't me, but I think there's a chance that it could have been, that I could have been a driving factor there. Um, so I do really stick to my guns with the small stuff, though. I mean, that's really what I've become well known for. So I appreciate you even saying out loud at the fact that that's something that I kind of have like pushed towards the market.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay,
um,
well, a good example is like recently, the Citizen Micro just got
yeah,
released,
yeah,
and Mike from Working Class Zero, traditionally it's like big fish hunter, and he has his big swim baits, the smallest being the 6-inch Citizen,
right,
and now it's like you got the micro, and
right.
kind of same thing, mixed stuff on that. People are like, that's not a swim bait, like, oh,
Mike is a very, very smart guy.
mm-hmm,
I love talking to Mike. I talk to him. I've not super often, but I've talked to him quite a few times. And he knows what he's doing, and he's great at marketing. He makes great baits, and that's all that there is to it. People are going to catch fish on them, and if people want to get upset that people are catching fish on a bait, well then we should all go back to the reality at the end of the day that we're all here to just catch little green fish.
mm-hmm,
So
yeah,
if they want to be upset about it, then that's fine, and I'm not going to judge them on that. It's their thing. So I use them like a tool, and if they're keyed in on 3.5-inch bait, I'm gonna throw a 3.5-inch bait. I mean, it's like I said earlier, that they're all tools for me, dude. It's not like my bait is the only thing that works ever.
mm-hmm,
Like you said, even you can sit there and throw a swim bait, and if they chase it and they're not gonna eat it, and then you throw a spinner bait and they chase it and they're not gonna eat it, you're gonna flip a jig into there, kind of thing. It's
mm-hmm,
just it's all a tool, just on how you're gonna catch them or how you want to catch them. So
yeah,
people don't have to buy them. I've never understood the whole bad talking. Base that somebody's making. It doesn't make sense to me. If you don't want to buy it, don't buy it. Just move on
yeah,
from it. So
yeah. Well, especially it's like going out of your way to be just a hateful human to somebody. It's just
correct.
outrageous.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I try and show as much love as I can to everybody in a
mm-hmm,
nutshell. I'll leave that there. So it's all good.
yeah, the internet's a weird place.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, dude.
but that's the thing. It's like, all right, if you want to, because like when I was fishing the one time, I was grinding it out. I was like, I'm gonna throw my 9-inch glide bait, and I'm going to grind it out. And the only fish I caught on that day was a little dinky pike,
Yeah.
and it's like, all right, that kind of sucked,
Right.
like, and was throwing around like one of the G crack like bellows gills,
Yeah.
and then I started catching little green fish, and I was like, holy shit! I've never had to work so hard for a little green fish before.
Right. Yeah, dude. Yeah. It's funny. It's a love, it's a passion thing, and I get it. People are extremely passionate about it, and I love it. That's why we all share that passion. It's just, how are we going to catch the biggest fish, kind of thing. And I know that that's why a lot of people have a lot of hate towards the small stuff, because the passion originally was catching not just a big fish, but the big fish in the lake. And I
Mm-hmm.
understand that aspect. That it makes sense to me, but also, like you said, don't go out of your way to hate on somebody else for doing something that they enjoy doing. I mean, we're all fishermen,
Oh,
you
for
know.
sure. Well,
So
and like the fisheries around me, they're a lot different than what you experience. Being in California, like we got northern strain.
yeah,
The biggest bass I've seen come out of like South Dakota was a 9-pounder, and that's
right,
just like a freak, an outlier. Just
right,
most
not normal,
people, yeah, most people are gonna catch 2.5, 3-pounders, four
right.
pounders. If you catch a 5, that's like a trophy class fish for the
A good fish,
Midwest.
yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, throwing like I've caught fish on TKs and other little bit bigger swim baits, but not a lot of fish are in my area. It seems like are gonna chase after a 9-inch glide bait a lot of the
right.
times.
Yeah, and that and I think it also does go back to kind of my point earlier about that they don't have mirrors, they don't know how big they are. So there are a lot of fish. I mean, I've caught a ton of small fish on small small fish on big baits kind of thing. Like I have a oh god, what is the bait called, dude? It was the fish everything trout, and that thing I
Okay,
think it's
yeah.
10 bait, dude. And that was before I was making baits even, but I caught a bunch of 1.5 2 pound fish on that thing. I'm like, what is happening? Not often. Again, that's why I ended up making the smaller bait because I started catching way more fish using it. But smaller fish will eat that stuff. It's just I think what like a big thing that doesn't get talked about enough is I don't think necessarily a bait is going to do any better than another bait unless the fisherman himself has confidence in the bait. Like if
Mm-hmm.
I pick up a bait and I'm like, oh, I'm going to catch something on this thing, I'm fishing that bait so much harder and just knowing that I'm going to catch something opposed to a bait that I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to catch on this thing. Like the thing, it's like if you get intimidated by it or you're not 100% sure about it, that's another good reason why my bait is a good, I think, starting point just to go from fishing the conventional stuff to all of a sudden something slightly bigger. And then you get comfortable with that. And now all of a sudden, okay, the 7 inch doesn't really even look that big now that I've been throwing the 5 inch and I've been catching fish on it, and then you catch some fish on the 7 inch, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, dude, a 9 inch isn't even that big. It's kind of it's like I made shirts a while ago. It said TGB, but instead of the Gracely baits, underneath it said the Gateway bait because it's kind of that bridge between conventional gear and a big bait.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just use it as a stepping stone even for guys who are just getting into the swim bait world. I mean, they're fun. They're fun to fish. You'll catch a lot of fish with them. You'll get some confidence in throwing a swim bait. So
Oh, for sure. Well, okay, so like you take like a so like when I was throwing around and was catching bass on that bellows gill, that was a 3.8, and
yeah,
that 3.8 is only slightly smaller than like the
then the
finesse gill. So
bingo.
like
Yeah,
that little bump up, it's not too much of a jump, you know.
right. And you can still be confident in it
Mm-hmm.
and know you're probably going to catch something. I mean, I think confidence in a bait is bigger than any color that you can get, any bait that you can get, any presentation that you're going to use. I mean, I genuinely think confidence in it makes that much of a difference. I don't know why it is, but it seems like I catch way more fish when I'm confident in throwing the bait that I'm throwing. So, and you can confidently throw these baits and know that you're probably going to get bit. I mean, it's I can't say guaranteed because obviously I would be lying, but you have a pretty good chance of getting bit throwing something smaller like that. So,
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like a lot of the fisheries you go to that have bass, they have bluegill. That's going
yeah,
to be a super common forage for a lot of different fish.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Um, with um, with your bigger size coming
uh-huh.
out, do you think that's gonna have flack with you being like I'm going bigger, and you think people are gonna hate with that?
Nope.
No.
I think I'm just expanding my market. It's one of those things. Instead of just being a swim bait maker, it's more of being a bait maker and a fisherman at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, everything's a tool, right? And I think there are times where the 9 inch bait is gonna work better. Like especially when we get our trout stockings around here, and they're all between 8 and 12 inches. A 9 inch bait is gonna be better for those bigger fish. If I'm specifically chasing one bite, that 9 inch bait probably is gonna be a better choice. If I'm sitting there chasing fish that are busting all around me and they're eating the crap out of shad up top, I'm picking up the 5 inch commode, bro. Like this thing's loud. It's gonna get them. It's what tool is gonna work best at the end of the day. And I think I'll finally be able to bring in some of those big bait guys, the guys who only want to throw bigger baits. I think they'll finally give me a shot. So, um, again, like I said, everything's just a tool at the end of the day. So, um, having a boat loaded up with 3.5 inch baits all the way up to 9 inch baits, I think is a good idea for anybody who's going out being realistic about actually catching a fish. So,
Mm-hmm. For sure. And with with your lineup expanding and with your baits being more in demand, like you transitioned into doing this full time not too terribly long ago, it seems like.
it start almost exactly a year ago. had an opportunity at the car dealership where everything was extremely slow, and my manager kind of knew that I was, making baits, and I was making them as quickly as I could and still selling out. I was honest with him, and maybe I shouldn't have been so honest, but it also, opened the door for the opportunity to do this full time. And, you know, now I'm here and I get to support my family doing something that I love every day. So,
Mm-hmm.
and honestly, it's thanks to everybody who's watching, even watching this, dude, even being able to come on here. Like, I appreciate you for having me, even because, without doing this, my voice doesn't get heard that often, and I can post on Instagram as much as I want, but again, it just looks like another bait maker kind of thing. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
a person with a daughter and a wife and, and another baby coming soon kind of thing. I don't get to put that out there enough. So it's exciting to even be able to come on to here. So
Yeah. Well, and there's a live person behind that, Instagram page. There's a
there is,
person assembling those baits by hand, one at a time. Like,
yeah, right. Exactly. And that's the biggest thing. So
and
people don't think about that.
yeah. Well, and I think that's part of the hesitation coming into buying like a swim bait or a handmade bait is it has that higher price tag on it, but
Correct.
it's like somebody's taking their time to make
Hmm.
this and there's
Right.
materials and it's like what does my time cost?
Correct.
You know?
Yep, exactly. And and I've had some people that are like, "Oh, well, it only costs this amount. Like, how could you be charging that?" It's like, well, you have no idea the amount of time that I've spent researching. Like, R&D is like a real thing, especially with these small baits. You start looking into, like, I'll give one small example. I don't want to give too much just because it'll give some stuff away. But one small example is, like, for example, the resin, that I'm using. I had to call the resin manufacturer because I'm like, dude, none of these baits are consistent. Like, why is this? And they're like, oh, well, if you only use, if you're using under X amount of resin per mold, they're not going to be the same. So I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to figure this out? So, it took a very long time of just trial and error and figuring out everything to make it so that it worked and that every single one of them was the same. The sink rate would end up being the same. I mean, everything was the same so that they were consistent. I don't like having duds. It doesn't happen very often. I get them every once in a while. I don't know why, and I couldn't even tell you why it happens, but, like, I'll say one out of every 2 or 300 kind of thing. It's not very often at all, but it happens every once in a while. But they're all done by hand and they all take forever, and now that I have it down, yes, is it a lot quicker for me? Yeah, but the amount of years that it took just to figure out exactly where they need to be every single time is a long time, and that's what you're paying for. You're paying for the amount of craftsmanship that went into making the product in the first place. So
Mm-hmm. Do you have a test tank then?
uh not necessarily. Well, I mean, I live really close to the park, so it's kind of, I just go take them over to the park and
Mm-hmm.
figure it out. So, I mean, now I've got now I've got it dialed in, so I'm pretty confident if a bait is going to work, like, right out of the gate, because of how dialed in it's become. I mean, it's literally it's like a science class, dude. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you really have to literally figure everything out. So,
Mm-hmm. And like I
yeah,
said, that's a lot of R&D, trial and error, just doing all of that.
right, exactly.
And kind of going back to, yeah, you get to like show your face. You get to be, um, there's more behind the brand than, just these baits or whatever. So,
For sure.
and yeah, you're expecting a child here pretty soon. That's
We
incredible.
are.
Congrats, dude.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm excited. My daughter's excited, I think, more than anybody. She keeps telling everybody she's going to be a big sister, so she's excited.
Does she come out fishing with you much then?
Oh, absolutely, she does, dude. She's all about it. I should post more pictures of her, dude. But she's like, so we do a lot of trout fishing because they have, like, a kids pond pretty locally to me, and they stock it pretty heavily with trout. And so we go out there, and, dude, she'll be the first one to walk. There's a 10-year-old little boy screaming who doesn't want to touch the fish, and my daughter is grabbing them by the gills with two hands, like, holding them up, dude. She's all stoked on it. I'm like, yeah, that's my girl, bro. She's It's cool, dude. Like, for example, we asked her what she wants for Christmas, kind of thing. Dude, the first thing out of her mouth, I want a big girl fishing pole now. I'm like, all
Hmm.
right, well, ask Santa for it. It's that's what she wants. She wants a bit. She wants a fishing rod. She wanted her name on it, and fortunately, the guy that's wrapping the plunger rods for me, he was able to help me out. So Santa's getting her a pink fishing pole with her name on it,
Yeah.
exactly like she wanted it. So she'll be
Dude,
excited about
that's
that.
awesome. Own custom fishing pole.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Heck yeah, dude.
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're gonna have
So
to pop for a nice reel too.
oh, we got one. I found a pink reel for her. It's not the best reel in the world, but it'll do. It matches the rod, and she'll be excited about it. So
There you go. That's the only thing that matters is looking cool while you're out on the water.
that's it. That's it, dude. She's got bright pink cowgirl boots that she walks around and tells everybody. She's like, I can do anything in my boots. I'm like, that's my cowgirl right there. That's her. So
So
yeah,
when you're out making baits in the garage or your shop or whatever,
yeah.
are you consuming any media while you're out there? Podcasts, got the TV on or music?
I should. I just most times I'm sitting there calling people and just talking crap with my friends, kind of thing. As
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing it, I keep myself busy, and sometimes it's music and podcasts and things like that. But I I can't do like it's weird. I can talk and do something at the same time, but if I'm listening to music, so I've got a music background, and so like
Mm-hmm.
when I listen to music, I actually like am listening to the music itself. So it's I know that probably sounds funny, but I appreciate music a lot, and it's one of those things that when I'm listening to it, I'm just listening to music. So like for example, like when I'm driving, that's like music is blasting kind of thing. So it's but yeah, no, I mean most times I'm just on the phone with a buddy or something.
Yeah. No, if I like, so I do just a little bait making on the side, a little hobby stuff for myself, and it's like, oh, if I put on a video, can't do it. I can't focus on like carving or what I'm doing,
Yeah.
or else
Yep.
I'll be like, like what's the homeless fisherman doing? Oh,
Yeah.
he's paddleboarding amongst alligators. I gotta watch this, and I'm not paying
That's funny.
attention.
Yeah, see, that's the problem, dude. Phones are my worst enemy, bro. If I'm not on the phone, I'm usually scrolling on it, and I don't like. And it's interacting with people. That's the big thing for me, dude. And it's hard. Even now, it's still hard for me. Even though I try and give everybody the attention that I feel like they should be getting supporting me, dude. I still have probably 15 or 20 messages like today that I haven't responded back to. It's just tough. Like I get a lot of messages of just simple interactions. When are baits going to be available again? When is this going to be available again? What do you recommend here? It's like it's just a lot of little stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
but I will always get back to everybody. One of the things that I have gotten a little bit of flack for sometimes is shipping, but there's also when there's 100 orders kind of thing, I'm doing it as quickly as I can, and I've never kept anybody from getting any bait they're not supposed to, or any bait that they're supposed to get. You know what I mean? Everybody will always get everything from me. So, give me an extra day or two if it takes a little bit.
Yeah.
So I do want to put that out there because sometimes it is difficult with the family and doing everything. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's funny that you mentioned like the music background because, if you consume like podcasts or whatever, I think when you were on Scales and Tails with Adrian, were you talking about when you were on The Voice or was that a
that
different
was
one?
Cast and Crank. Yeah,
Cast and Crank.
yeah,
Yeah. Because
that was
Nick,
fun.
yeah, because Nick has like the big music background too.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, that was cool. That whole journey was wild, but
um, so what kind of music do you consume though? Are you like a country art like fan or
country music. Yeah, I'm a
okay,
country music fan for
okay,
sure.
but like what kind of country music?
Not Morgan Wallen. Uh, no, I mean like I've been really big on like Zach Top, Cody Johnson. Cody Johnson's even becoming very mainstream recently, but like
Mm-hmm.
before he was extremely mainstream, Cody Johnson was somebody. But recently it's been Zach Top. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar or not, but he's becoming very popular very quick, which is slightly unfortunate, but it is what it is. I'll find another artist, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's country and then Christian music, like Phil Wickham. I went and actually got to see him in concert last night, which was a lot of fun. But
Oh, that's cool.
so yeah, I mean, just that's what I'm listening to.
Yeah, so like a lot of my music like kind of steers towards like metal, rock
Cool.
music.
Yeah,
But if I listen to country music, so yeah, it's gonna be like Coulter Wall or George Strait, Brooks and Dunn,
Yep.
kind of
Yep.
a little bit older artists like that.
For sure. Oh, dude, hey, I'm telling you, you should check out Zach Toppin because that's like, he reminds me of those guys. That's kind of why I think he's becoming as popular as he is so quick, because he's got that old school like '90s country vibe. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, sweet dude. We'll get this wrapped up then. Anything else you wanna put out there?
Sharing everything helps you, it helps me, it helps everything. So if somebody's watching this, share the podcast to help him out. Share if you buy bait from me, share a picture of it, it helps me out. you know Sharing, I think, is the biggest thing. A lot of people think that supporting is spending money, and that's not the case at all. Obviously spending money is great, but just spreading the word and telling people about it is the biggest thing in the entire world. I mean, that helps, and that's what I become most fortunate at the end of the day for. So, help spread the word, share the love, stop hating on small baits.
Yeah, well, it's like you said, you didn't have any influencers to help you out. You built this brick by brick yourself.
For sure. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, it's fun, and hopefully I do end up getting somebody on board with me that will share my stuff a bunch. But at the moment, I've got a small following that is loyal, and they help share everything. So, that everything helps. So.
Yeah. Well, costs nothing to share it. It costs us nothing to be a good person. So.
Bingo. That's exactly right. So.
All right.
Otherwise, I mean, God bless, and thank you again for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, perfect. And when this comes out, it'll be a couple weeks. I got a backlog of
That's fine.
other podcast people that I've had on, super cool people.
Perfect.
But yeah, I'll link all your stuff.
If it's still Christmas time, Merry Christmas to everybody.
Yeah, dude, I've had my Christmas. We got our stockings back here. I've had my Christmas tree up since like right after Halloween.
That's so funny.
And it got some baits on it too. I asked my girlfriend if it was all right to throw some swim baits up there.
You got to, yeah, you got
to. Yeah, some legal dope and some other stuff up there.
There you go. Right on.
Heck yeah, dude. All right, well, I'll link all your stuff in the description. And
cool.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it.
Yep, for sure. Later, man.
Later. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. I really enjoyed having Kyle on. And you can support me by leaving a review on the podcast, by subscribing to the podcast, and sharing it with a friend. Share it with 2 friends if you would. That'd be amazing. But I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you for the next episode.